How far would you go to prove to yourself that you're really alive? Our story follows a guy who survived a brain tumor, pulled off the legendary Explorers Grand Slam, and planted the flag of a children's hospital on top of the world, all while living with leukemia. And then his heart suddenly stopped in a tent, high up at over 21,000 feet. Was it a crazy risk or the ultimate act of courage? That's what we're here to figure out, step by step. Picture this. You're 19 and the whole world is ahead of you. Then, a doctor tells you that you might have just a few weeks left. But this isn't a story about endings. It's about what happens after. Let's start in Highland Park, a pretty suburb outside Chicago. Green lawns, quiet streets, big dreams. This is where Alexander Pankow grows up, Alex for short. His life is on a pretty clear track. He's smart, ambitious, and gets into Northwestern University, one of the country's top schools. He's doing the regular campus thing, making new friends, planning for an epic future. Life seems pretty much perfect. But the summer after his first year flips everything upside down. Out of nowhere, doctors find a tumor in his cerebellum. The news drops like a ton of bricks. That whole bright future suddenly gets put on hold for a desperate fight to make it through the present. Studying, dreams, they all fade into the background. After a brutal operation, most people would hit pause, maybe try to piece themselves back together, take a break. But not Alex. He chooses the unthinkable. He goes straight back to college. Imagine his classmates' reaction. The guy who just stared down eternity, right back in class like nothing happened. And he doesn't just show up, he goes on to graduate. His name is right there in the Northwestern Commencement Program, class of 2008. Years later, we see Alex again, in another fancy Chicago suburb, this time in Lake Forest. He's not alone now. By his side are his wife, Nina Lasky Pankow, and their 2 kids. A happy family, a successful life, the American dream that Alex literally snatched back from fate. He proved that the scariest diagnosis isn't the end of the road. Sometimes it's just an unexpected sharp turn. But to really understand what he went through, we need to rewind to that summer of 2005. It all started with headaches. Nothing crazy, just a mild annoyance. Probably stress, a little sleep-deprived, normal college stuff. But as the days tick by, it gets worse. A constant alarm he can't ignore anymore. After months of second-guessing, he ends up in a doctor's office, staring at the cold, gray scan on the monitor. There it is, a tumor. It's right in the cerebellum, a tiny but crucial part of the brain, kind of like the body's own autopilot, handling every step you take, each little movement you don't even think about. And now, that control center is under threat. Alex is rushed to Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. Yeah, he's technically an adult, but this is where the best experts are. Suddenly, his life is in the hands of neurosurgeon Tadanori Tomita. Not just a doctor, but a total maestro in the operating room. Picture a jeweler at work, but instead of precious stones, he's dealing with the delicate threads of human life. That's what it's like for a doctor who enters the most intricate maze there is, the human brain. There's just no room for mistakes. Every move is measured down to the tiniest detail, because even the slightest misstep could change someone's life forever. The surgery goes well. The tumor is out. But the battle isn't over yet. Now the whole family holds their breath, waiting for those biopsy results. This is the toughest part. Time seems to stretch on forever. Everything hinges on just a single word in that final report. Then the news arrives. The tumor is benign. That word hits like a wave of relief. The worst storm is finally over. Alex bounces back with surprising speed. Just a few weeks later, he's up and moving, ready to pick up where he left off. Back to classes, back to his friends, back to life. But this experience, it doesn't just leave a scar. It becomes a foundation, a starting point for something he never could have predicted. He doesn't know it yet, but one day he'll walk these hospital halls again, only this time in a completely different role. This turning point shapes everything that comes next. But for what, exactly? After all, here's a second chance, snatched back from fate itself. Someone who's looked over the edge should want to live life to the fullest, appreciate every moment. And, at first, that's exactly what happens. Alex throws himself into his studies, making up for lost time. He graduates from university in 2008, diploma in hand, a whole future wide open before him. Career, plans, big dreams. He's building the normal life he almost lost. Years go by, Life follows its usual rhythm: work, home, the everyday routine. On the surface, everything looks fine. He's found his path. He's made it. But deep down, something's not right. The spark, that hunger for life he had right after the hospital, starts to fade, like someone's slowly turning off the oxygen. Later, Alex puts a word to it: burnout. It's not the kind of pain that shows up on a scan or an X-ray. It's this quiet, exhausting emptiness, like running on a treadmill, working hard but never moving forward. Day turns into day, and they all start to blur together. And here's the really surprising part. Through all these years, up till 2016, mountains just aren't part of his life. He doesn't go hiking on weekends. He doesn't read mountaineer memoirs. He doesn't dream about snowy peaks. For him, mountains are just, maybe, a pretty screensaver on his computer. That's it. There's no record of any adventure, no expeditions, nothing. He hits this turning point in his life as a total beginner, a blank slate, with absolutely zero experience or training. Here's a person who survived one of the toughest surgeries imaginable, and now he's searching for something more, a way to actually feel alive, not just go through the motions. And what he can't know yet is that the answer is waiting for him in a place where the air is thin and every step is a challenge. So, in 2016, right in the middle of all that crushing silence and routine, a decision is born. From the outside, it looks completely irrational, spontaneous, maybe even a little crazy. He's decided he's going to climb Kilimanjaro. Just imagine it. A guy whose wildest adventure in recent years was surviving the morning commute suddenly sets his sights on the highest point in Africa. Why? Later, he'll say in an interview that it was literally a cry from the soul, an attempt to do something so big, so far outside his comfort zone, that the noise of it would drown out the emptiness inside. He didn't just need proof that he was alive. He needed to feel it in every single cell of his body. He approached it like a project. No romance of the lone mountain conqueror here. Alex just signs up with a regular commercial group. There's guides, porters, a well-worn trail. He's a client, a tourist, just one of the crowd. But inside, something really different is going on. As the group hikes those scenic paths, he's deep in a silent conversation with his past. Every step upward is an argument against that voice whispering, "You're weak. You're sick. You can't do this." The air gets colder, thinner, the climb gets harder, and right there, on the side of the mountain, something kind of magical happens. Real, physical exhaustion starts to push out all the old mental fatigue. And then, November of 2016, the summit of Uhuru Peak, Kilimanjaro. He's standing there, almost 19,000 feet up, gasping for breath, completely overwhelmed by emotion. And in that instant, it just clicks. That glass ceiling he'd felt hanging over him since surgery shatters into a million pieces. He's looking out at the world from the roof of Africa, realizing that the only limits he ever really had were the ones he put there himself. The climb doesn't just boost his confidence, it actually rewires his whole mindset. Kilimanjaro stops being the finish line. It becomes the starting point. And up there, on the roof of Africa, a new and almost unthinkable dream is born: to take on the Explorer's Grand Slam. That means reaching the highest peak on every continent and making it to both the North and South Poles. This isn't just about setting a new goal anymore. It's declaring war on his own fears. The euphoria at the summit is unreal, a rush, almost like a drug. But pretty soon, that feeling fades. So, what next? Go back to Chicago, hang a photo on the wall, fall back into the same old routine? No way. Alex gets it. If he wants to keep the fire lit that sparked in Africa, he needs to keep feeding it. So he finds the biggest log he can. Just 2 months later, in January 2017, he's standing at the foot of Aconcagua. Now, for any climber, going from Kilimanjaro to the highest peak in South America is like stepping out of a go-kart and into a Formula One car. Aconcagua isn't a scenic stroll. It's almost 23,000 feet of tough, rocky reality. And that freezing wind they call viento blanco can knock you over and freeze your face in minutes. It's his first real trial by fire, and he passes. Standing at the summit, he realizes Kilimanjaro wasn't just some fluke, it was the opening chapter. Now, he's got a whole system. The crazy idea of the Grand Slam is starting to look more like an actual business plan. The summer of 2017 turns into one long, exhausting training camp. spread out across the globe. First stop, Ecuador, the peaks of Iliniza Norte and Cayambe. Here, he learns not just to endure, but to actually function at high altitude, training his body to deal with the thin air. It's a bit like a musician grinding out scales for hours before they're ready for the concert. Next up is North America, Mount Rainier. This is a different school altogether. Glacier crevasses, crampons, ice axe work, rope travel. It's not just a hike anymore, it's a technical dance with nature's raw power. Right after that, it's off to the Alps, Mont Blanc. This is mountaineering's classic course, where he hones his skills until they're second nature. Each climb isn't just another box ticked off a list. It's a new tool added to his kit, another line on the resume heading toward the real goal. And then, the year's peak, October, in Nepal, the Himalayas. He's here to climb Island Peak. Technically, it's not the hardest mountain, but the meaning is huge. Standing on this 6,000-meter ridge, he sees the giants for the first time with his own eyes. Lhasa, Makalu, and of course, Everest, all looming in silent grandeur. The dream isn't just some abstract idea anymore. It's right there, just a few dozen kilometers away, staring back at him, testing his resolve. In just a year, Alex goes from being an office worker who happened to climb one mountain to becoming a focused athlete collecting experience from all over the world. What started as luck turns into a pattern. An impulsive wish is now a calculated mission. The base for the Grand Slam is set. Seeing Everest is one thing. Standing face to face with the frozen heart of our planet is something else completely. The foundation's in place, and now it's time to start building. The first story rises in the most inhospitable place on Earth, January 2018, Antarctica. Vinson Massif. This isn't just a mountain, it's the top of a whole different world. All white, all silence. Picture a place where the quiet is so thick you can almost touch it, and the cold doesn't just sting, it burrows right into your bones. There's nothing here but ice and sky. And this is where Alex meets his first real enemy. Not the altitude, but the wind. An Antarctic storm isn't just air moving. It's a raw physical force, a white dragon trying to throw you off the frozen ridge. It howls, it knocks you down, it steals your heat and your willpower. Surviving this fight means proving you're ready for anything. After the icy fury of Antarctica, he heads for the frozen desert of the Arctic. In spring, he skis the last degree. It's a totally different kind of challenge. Vinson is all about vertical, fighting the altitude and the wind. The Arctic is pure horizontal, a meditative journey across an endless white canvas, a test of steady, grinding endurance, from the hushed silence of Antarctica to the ringing emptiness of the Arctic. And in between these polar expeditions, there's New Zealand with Mount Aspiring. It's kind of like pulling into the pit stop just to fine-tune your technique, a classic alpine route, so you don't lose your edge or that feel of real rock under your fingers. But honestly, the wildest adventure of the year is still waiting for him later, in the fall. Indonesia, Karsten's Pyramid. Now, getting to this mountain isn't something you just show up for. First, you have to hack your way through a rainforest that's practically exploding with life. Then, all of a sudden, you trade the heat and humidity for sharp, cold limestone that cuts like a razor. It's a journey from one world into another, from raw, primal chaos into the strict, precise order of the rocks. And then comes the big moment, October. He's back in the Himalayas, but this time, he's not just gazing at the giants. He's here to pay one of them a visit, Cho Oyu, the turquoise goddess, his first 8,000er. People will tell you it's one of the more approachable giants, but honestly, there's no such thing as an easy 8,000er. This is your ticket to the big leagues, where the price of a mistake is everything. This is also where, for the first time, he steps into the death zone. And that's not some dramatic turn of phrase. It's a real place, above 8,000 meters, where the air just can't keep you alive anymore. Your body slowly starts shutting down. Every breath is a struggle. Here, time is your biggest enemy. Making it to the top of Cho Oyu changes everything. Alex is no longer just a tourist collecting summits on every continent. Now, he's a high-altitude climber, someone who's proven he can breathe and move where most wouldn't even survive. He's got his first 8,000er under his belt, but that was just the warm-up. Here comes 2019, the year he sets out to put the final mark on a huge project. But before he tackles the main event, he heads back to the land of endless ice, January, Antarctica. Once again, he's crossing that legendary last degree to the South Pole, this time on skis. It's like coming back to your power spot, recharging before the last, hardest push. The landscape's familiar now, but this time, he's part of a guided group, a whole new kind of experience, a different way to see the world of eternal winter. It's not really about proving himself anymore. It's more a mental reset. One deep breath of icy air before facing what will be the biggest climb of his life. And then, Everest, Sagarmatha, Chomolungma, a mountain that doesn't really need an introduction. In the spring, he joins a commercial expedition heading up the classic Southeast Ridge, the route that Tenzing and Hillary pioneered. Today, it's a well-oiled system, an entire industry built to help people reach the roof of the world. But there's another side to all that. Everest's a superhighway in the sky, and sometimes it gets jammed. It's no longer just you versus the mountain. You're now part of a long line of dreamers, each one depending on the next. Come May, he's at the very top. He's got the kind of view only birds and gods ever get to see, the curve of the planet at the horizon, an endless sea of Himalayan peaks, clouds drifting beneath his feet, the roof of the world right under his boots, the ultimate dream for millions. He's made it, the goal reached, but is it over? Not quite. To truly finish the Explorer's Grand Slam, there's one last step to go. A technicality maybe, but it turns out to be anything but easy. Summer, Alaska, Denali, this is the coldest giant on the planet, and it doesn't forgive carelessness. Up there, right on its summit, the circle comes full. The Grand Slam of exploration is complete. So, what does a champion do after the biggest win of their career? They head straight back to training. By August, Alex is already climbing Mount Baker. This isn't about chasing records anymore. This is just how he lives. When you've already stood on the poles and on the rooftop of the world, what's next? Hang up your ice axe and start telling stories to your grandkids? Not a chance. For Alex, the game is just getting interesting, but the rules have totally changed. If the Grand Slam was all about endurance, now it's about finesse. It's like switching from running a marathon to figure skating on sheer cliff faces. His mindset shifts from just getting there to getting there with style and precision. It's not about records now, it's about mastery. So picture this. It's July 2020 in the North Cascades, Forbidden Peak. Even the name feels like a challenge. Alex is aiming for the North Ridge route. Imagine a giant knife blade slicing up into the sky. One side drops away into the abyss, the other side just as sheer. You're walking right along the edge, every single step requiring total focus, and the price of a mistake is measured in seconds of free fall. This is mountaineering in its purest form, not fighting the height, but having a conversation with the terrain, where your arguments are just a rope, an ice axe, and cold calculation. He finishes the route, and it's like earning a black belt after years of training. Fast forward a year, time for another test, Mount Shuksan, the North Face. Among climbers, North Faces are always something special. It's the dark side of the mountain, cold, icy, and unwelcoming. The sun barely touches it. It's a vertical dance on tiny holds of ice and rock, where the only music is the sound of your crampons biting into hard snow. Speed doesn't matter here. What matters is the precision of every single move. This isn't just about getting up the mountain anymore. It's about solving a three-dimensional puzzle that nature itself designed. And there's something else climbing alongside him, his presence in the media. Every step on the glacier, every piton hammered into the rock, turns into a story, one he shares with the world and uses to inspire others. By the end of 2021, Alex is heading to Ecuador. The summit? Iliniza Sur. Different continent, different climate, totally different kind of mountain. It's like stepping out of your usual gym and right into a brand new, unpredictable arena. The climb is tougher, trickier, and demands every bit of skill he's collected over the years. With every new ascent, his toolkit grows richer. He's not just collecting summits anymore. He's an artist looking for more challenging canvases. The question isn't where to climb, but how. After Ecuador, where the mountains are wild yet somewhat predictable, Alex starts searching for a new texture to paint on, and he finds it. Imagine climbing a frozen waterfall. Every swing of your tool isn't just another step up. It's a conversation with something fragile and totally unpredictable. Welcome to the world of ice climbing. It's January 2022, and Alex is hanging on a route called Dexter. The difficulty rating sounds almost like a secret code, 3 to 4 on the ice scale. To To put it simply, that means the ice is almost vertical, and you've got absolutely zero room for mistakes. Ice isn't like a rock. It's alive. It breathes, shifting with every single degree of temperature. Under your crampons, sometimes it rings like crystal. Other times, it just crumbles away like wet sugar. It's a balancing act on a razor's edge, where you've got to trust the sharp tips of your gear as if they're just extensions of your hands. But what happens if, suddenly, granite spikes poke through this icy mirror? In March, the challenge kicks up a notch. The route is called Black Dike. Now, it's not just pure ice you have to master. It's mixed climbing, and you have to switch techniques in a heartbeat. 1 second, you're hooking your ice axe into a tiny crack in the rock. The next, you're screwing an ice tool into some fragile, glassy ice. Your skills have to pivot non-stop. It's like playing piano and violin at the same time, in gloves and in freezing weather. Every move is measured, every step is a tiny win against gravity, and against your own fear. Then comes the real climax. April, Alaska. The mountain's name says it all, Moose's Tooth. The goal? A legendary route called Ham and Eggs. Imagine a thread of snow and ice, nearly a full kilometer long, weaving up this massive granite face. Here, you have to bring every single thing you've ever learned, how to move on sheer rock, how to dance up delicate, ever-changing ice. Alex and his guide go alpine style, which basically means no porters, no camps, no crowds of people. Everything you need for days, you carry all of it yourself. It's the rawest, most demanding way to climb. And this is where everything shifts. This isn't just another summit trip you can buy from a tour operator. This is technical alpinism in its purest form, where the only thing that matters is your own skill. The peak collector inside gives way for good to the athlete and the artist. After those wild acrobatic days on Alaska's ice, it almost feels like Alex is invincible, like he's found a way to talk to any force of nature. But the mountains always answer back in their own way. That reply comes on the summit of Snowmass Mountain in Colorado, one of the famous 14ers. That's where it all happens, the moment he'd later call his Aspen disaster. Picture this. You're at the top of your game, totally confident, flowing through every move. Then the mountain decides to flip the script. One wrong step, a split second when your footing vanishes, and everything turns upside down. Just a heartbeat in free fall, stretched out into an eternity, and then slam, abrupt, jarring silence. That's when it hits you. Your body isn't doing what you want anymore. He lies there on the slope, realizing there's no way down on his own. All the skills, all the tricks, all that experience is worthless right now. You're a pro, sure, an athlete, but suddenly you're just a fragile human, totally dependent on help from outside. And that help comes, quite literally, from the sky. The quiet of the peaks is shattered by the thumping roar of helicopter blades. The National Guard's legendary Black Hawk swoops in to save him. A machine built for completely different jobs is now performing something incredibly delicate. It's picking up a lone climber from a hostile mountainside. For the pilots, it's an operation that demands absolute precision, getting close to sheer rock, hovering in thin air where any gust of wind could be fatal, and pulling the injured climber on board. From down below, it honestly looks like a miracle, like something out of a movie where fate intervenes. Later, when he's safe, Alex doesn't try to shove this behind him. If anything, he studies it, piece by piece. On his website, he posts an in-depth breakdown titled The Aspen Disaster. He isn't just telling the story of being rescued, he's picking apart every mistake, every split-second decision that led him to fall. Elmhurst magazine quotes him, passing along his almost scientific dive into what went wrong. And when did all of this happen? Well, no source gives a precise date. That only makes the whole story hit harder. It's the kind of experience that lives outside of time itself, a permanent reminder for anyone heading into the mountains. No matter how skilled you are, the mountain always has the final word. There's that moment, lying on a cold slope, listening to the roar of those helicopter blades, when you know your life hangs by a thread. That changes your perspective forever. Suddenly, strength isn't just what your body can do. It's what you can give others too. That's why, for Alex, the Aspen disaster didn't end up as a low point. It became a turning point. Right after that, he launches what he calls his most important project, Summits of the Mind. The idea is beautifully simple. Turn a personal challenge into a shared victory. Now, every expedition he leads isn't just about setting some new personal record. It's also a fundraising campaign for the Children's Hospital in Chicago, a place where little patients are fighting battles that make climbing a mountain seem easy. Alex found a way to be there for them. On every major climb, he takes along a tiny flag from the hospital. Picture it. Up at 8,000 meters, in the thinnest air where every breath is a victory, he unfurls this symbol. Even here, on top of the world, he's thinking of the kids who are still fighting theirs down below. And that gesture isn't just symbolic, it brings real, measurable results. If you look around, you'll see different numbers floating around. Hundreds of thousands of dollars raised. Some people mention nearly 500,000. There isn't a detailed public report, but the scale is obvious. His climbs have turned into real help for real kids. But at this point, the story isn't just about climbing or money anymore. It's personal now. Every ascent is dedicated to specific kids. Little patients facing the toughest diagnoses, fighting brain tumors. For a child looking out at the world from a hospital window, just knowing that someone strong and brave is climbing a mountain on their behalf can be a huge source of hope. Their struggle becomes a shared one. The same mountains that almost took everything from Alex have become a stage for something much bigger, hope. And that hope has names now, the names of real children. Here's a story where Alex dedicates his climb to a boy named Zaivian. Zaivian isn't fighting on a mountain. He's battling an aggressive brain tumor in the sterile hallways of a hospital. While doctors do everything they can for Zaivian, Alex takes on a new summit, every step and every swing of his ice axe turning into a metaphor for that little boy's fight. And then comes Everest. When Alex climbs to the highest point on the planet, he does it for Serena Lewis, a girl who's survived a grueling brain surgery. Just think about it, the tallest mountain on Earth, and a story about a little girl who conquered her own Everest while lying in a hospital bed. These stories blend into one. As Alex carries Serena's story to the top of the world, he shows us what the human spirit can do, even when the odds seem impossible. This image of him in the media starts to take shape. He's not just a daredevil climber, he's a kind of knight heading into the mountains for these kids. In every interview, he's patient, repeating, "The real heroes aren't us climbers. The real heroes are the kids." He makes it clear. He chooses his risks, his mountains. These kids, they get their mountains without choosing. And their courage, that's the raw, real thing. So, where does all this empathy come from? The answer lies in his own past. Turns out, when he was young, he went through some serious treatment at a children's hospital himself. It's not just sympathy. He truly gets it. He knows what those hospital walls feel like. He knows the ache of feeling left behind while life keeps rolling on somewhere outside the window. Now, with his project, Summits of the Mind, he's not just chasing peaks or traveling to the ends of the earth. This is his way back to those hospital rooms. Only now, he's not a patient, he's a messenger. A reminder that behind every set of hospital walls, there's a world waiting for you, cheering you on. This idea guides him, turning every adventure into something meaningful. Fast forward to the year 2023. The camera is fixed on Ama Dablam, a razor-sharp peak in the Himalayas that stabs at the sky, one of the world's most beautiful mountains. It's meant to be a straightforward climb, just another chapter in the Summits of the Mind journey. Alex is ready, focused, and as always, carrying the stories of the kids with him. But sometimes, mountains speak a language we don't quite get at first. This time, as he climbs the classic route, his body sends out a warning. It isn't the usual exhaustion, not the thin air he knows how to handle. It's something deeper, a heaviness in every move, a cold that feels like it's coming from the inside, even with the dazzling sun all around. The body he's relied on for years suddenly refuses to cooperate. And so, he has to make the hardest choice for any climber. He turns back. Coming home doesn't bring relief, but it does bring answers. After a round of tests in the United States, doctors give him the news. Chronic myeloid leukemia. And that changes everything. Basically, it's like this. Your own blood cell factory suddenly starts making defective parts, and those gradually take over your whole body. The same Alex who used to draw strength from the stories of sick children is now facing his own diagnosis. And suddenly, it's crystal clear. Ama Dablam wasn't a failure. It was a turning point. Up there, nearly 7,000 meters above sea level, under impossible strain, his body sent out the first unmistakable SOS, forcing him to stop and listen. From that moment on, his life flipped into a brand new kind of expedition, one without ice axes or crampons. Now, he's living with chronic myeloid leukemia, going through regular checkups and constant monitoring. On his mountaineering resume, Ama Dablam will just look like a line about leaving the route early. But in his personal story, that mountain is the giant marker that split his life into a clear before and after. It turned his symbolic fight for others into a very real fight for himself. So, what does a person do when they hear a diagnosis that, for so many, sounds like the end of the road? Well, Alex Panko doesn't give up. He tightens his bootlaces. For him, this isn't a life sentence. It's just a new set of rules, another unpredictable glacier on the way to the top. He throws himself back into training with a stubbornness that could move mountains. His body is still his tool. Now, he just has to learn to work with it differently, factoring in this invisible companion, his chronic leukemia. Picture a doctor's office. On one side, you've got a guy who just faced his own limits on Ama Dablam. On the other side, a team of specialists poring over charts and test results. And then, something amazing happens. The doctors give him the green light. Yes, they say he can keep climbing, but with serious conditions. These strict monitoring, constant check-ins, and a readiness to pull back at any sign of danger. This isn't a free pass for recklessness. It's a careful, almost scientific partnership between a mountaineer and his medical team. And if you read through his messages with friends, there's a line that really says it all. He wants to go out on his own terms. He doesn't want his illness to decide when he takes his last step in the mountains. That's his call, his choice. It's like telling the storm you'll choose when your ship goes down. Every expedition now is more than just a challenge against nature. It's a quiet negotiation with his own body, a statement that he's still in control of his destiny. Over and over, he makes one thing clear. The main goal is always to come home, back to his family. Summits come and go, but home is the constant. And yet, against all odds, he announces a new goal. Makalu, the fifth highest mountain in the world, 8,485 meters of frozen silence. After turning back from a 7,000-meter peak for health reasons, he's now aiming for an 8,000-meter giant. It might sound wild, but for Alex, it just makes sense. The logic of a fighter. And just like before, he's dedicating this climb to the kids at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. His personal battle is once again a symbol of hope for those fighting in hospital rooms everywhere. He's ready to carry their stories to the top of the world again, proving that even when your own world falls apart, you can still be a rock for others. So, how do you turn a personal challenge into a global mission? It takes a team, a true machine, where every little part has to work just right. The climb up Makalu is being organized by Madison Mountaineering, a powerhouse in the world of high-altitude climbing. Their name is a seal of professionalism. Over in Nepal, all the crazy logistics, everything from hauling gear to setting up life at base camp, falls to Himalayan Guides Nepal. This isn't just a lone person against a mountain. It's a well-oiled system where everyone has a role. The route they're taking is the classic commercial one, which means it's well-known and it's been tested by tons of expeditions before. Still, even on the most beaten path, an 8,000er is still, well, an 8,000er. Up here, the mountain calls the shots. And then there's this number that seems kind of random at first, $27,838. Why so specific? Well, it's not random at all. There's poetry in the math. That's the exact number of feet Makalu rises above sea level. Every step up, every single foot that Alex climbs, turns into $1 for hope. Think about that. It's not just fundraising. It's a genius metaphor. The higher he climbs, the more support flows to kids below. Every breath he takes in the thin air, every tough step in heavy boots, has a real, measurable impact. His climb becomes a living chart. Height equals life. All the money raised goes straight to one place, the Pediatric Oncology and Hematology Program at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. That's where young patients are fighting their own exhausting climbs. Their mountains are hospital corridors. Their summits are good lab results. Their Everest is the day they get to go home. Alex isn't just carrying their flag up the mountain. He's literally building a bridge for them. Each foot he gains on Makalu is another chance for a doctor, another shot at hope for a child. His struggle and their struggle merge into one powerful movement upward, toward the light. But you can't take on something this big alone. So, who are the people climbing right by his side, sharing every risk and every breath of thin mountain air? The Madison Mountaineering team on Makalu is actually pretty small. Picture this: just 3 clients, 3 people tied together by one dream. Alongside Alex, there are 2 fearless climbers, Christine and Aga. Each has their own story, their own reason for being here, but now they're united, a tiny squad taking on a giant. Their guide, Terry Silvestre, is their glue, their eyes and ears on the trail. He's the one making the decisions that could mean life or death. He reads the mountain like an open book and leads the group through the ice falls and up the steep slopes. But who's the real powerhouse behind the scenes? Who carries the biggest load? Of course, it's the team of Sherpas from Himalayan Guides Nepal. There are about 5 of them, and honestly, they're the real heroes up here. These aren't just porters hauling gear. They're the ones finding the route, fixing the ropes, setting up camp. They're the heart and lungs of the whole expedition. For them, these mountains aren't just a destination, they're home. Now, you've got this small international crew, and they're starting what looks almost like a slow, careful dance with the mountain. This whole process is called acclimatization, and there's just no way around it. You can't simply show up and sprint to 8,000 meters. You have to trick your body, teach it to survive in a place it was never built for. It's kind of like slowly slipping into a different reality. First, the team heads up to Camp 1, spending the night and giving their bodies the first real shock, their first taste of altitude. Then they push a bit higher, towards Camp 2, reaching up to around 6,900 meters. The point isn't even to stay there, just to touch that height, breathe in that icy air, and then head right back down to spend the night lower. That's the golden rule of mountaineering: climb high, sleep low. Every time they move up and down, it's like making a deposit for the future. It's tough, exhausting work, but it's the only way the mountain might let you have a shot at the summit. Fast forward to May 4th. All that effort seems to be paying off. The team smoothly moves from Camp 1 to Camp 2, settling in at a staggering new altitude, over 6,600 meters. That's a serious milestone. The day turns out surprisingly clear and sunny, and later, the guide will write about the absolutely mind-blowing views of Everest and Lhotse from their camp. For a moment, it feels like the mountain is on their side, laying out a perfect white carpet of snow. In times like this, it's tempting to believe anything's possible, and the summit is already within reach. But the mountains write their own rules. Out here, day flips to night in a heartbeat, bringing a bone-chilling cold and complete silence. It's evening now, Camp 2. In one of the tents, a tiny island of life in a frozen wasteland, Alex and his guide, Terry Silvestre, are having dinner, swapping stories from the day, talking about what comes next. It's a normal conversation between 2 people focused on one goal, but it happens at an altitude where humans just aren't supposed to be. And then, right in the middle of a sentence, something changes. Alex just stops talking. His eyes, alive and focused a second ago, suddenly go blank. He stops responding. There's a split second of confusion. Then Terry understands this isn't just exhaustion. This is something much worse. He jumps into action, starting CPR immediately. Others rush into the tent when they hear him call for help. Suddenly, this little tent becomes a makeshift operating room on the edge of the world, every breath hard-earned, every movement draining what little strength remains. An hour passes, then 2, then 3. They take turns, giving it everything they've got in a desperate fight to bring Alex back. But up here, the air is just too thin, and no one's strength is limitless. In the end, none of it is enough. In the deep silence of the high camp, under a sky full of indifferent stars, Alex Panko's life comes to an end. When dawn breaks over Camp 2, it doesn't bring relief, just a ringing emptiness. The night is over, but the nightmare isn't. Inside a small tent, now a silent witness to the tragedy, Alex's body remains. Up here, at 6,500 meters, none of the usual rules of life apply. The rituals we know, goodbyes, mourning, closure, they all belong to another world, far below, where life follows a different pace. Up here, there's only the frozen wind, the thin air, and one main goal: survival. And then there's that other question, almost impossible to answer. What now? In the days that follow, the team and their Sherpas make desperate attempts to organize a descent. But Makalu, the mountain that had greeted them so kindly just days before, now shows its real face. Bringing someone down from this altitude is like launching a whole new, high-risk expedition. Every step across the icefall, each hidden crevasse, is a potential death trap. And the weight of a human body in these conditions turns into something nearly impossible to handle. When journalists reach out for answers, the local tour operator just throws up his hands. It's extremely difficult and dangerous for the rescuers. We're doing everything we can, but the mountain makes the rules. On May 5th, the silence finally breaks. Madison Mountaineering releases an official statement, and in no time, news of the tragedy travels around the world. And here's the harshest irony. In their statement, they revealed that literally a day before everything changed, Alex was considered one of the strongest and most resilient climbers in the group. He was moving with confidence, showing no signs of exhaustion. His body looked perfectly acclimatized. Learning this just makes the loss even harder to process. The mountain didn't take the weakest. It took one of the best. Now, the team faces a choice that's not in any mountaineering handbook. What do? Head down, carrying the heavy weight of defeat, or keep going? After long talks with their eyes fixed on the summit, now not just a goal, but something deeply personal, they make up their minds. Turning back would mean letting this tragedy be the final word. To keep climbing means carrying his memory higher, closer to the sky itself. So they keep going, climbing for themselves, climbing for Alex. Now, this climb has become a tribute. But while the team grits their teeth and pushes upward below, where the world moves to the beat of news stories and official statements, a different story is playing out. One with a single burning question. Why? The world wants answers. Simple, straightforward ones. And soon, explanations start to take shape. The first to try and answer are the people closest to the expedition. A spokesperson for Himalayan Guides Nepal, the team handling mountain logistics, shares a preliminary version with reporters. They suspect Alex's heart gave out at high camp. Madison Mountaineering echoes the same idea in their official message. This reasoning sounds logical, even familiar to those who know these extreme conditions: cardiac arrest. The phrase sticks instantly like a label, and news agencies all over the world run with it. Soon those words, probably or possibly, drop out of headlines altogether. All that's left is a dry, unquestioned fact that quickly circles the globe. But up here, in the thin air of the Himalayas, things are way more complicated. Trying to make a real diagnosis at a high-altitude camp, with no equipment and no medical experts, is nearly impossible. And this is where we hit the shakiest part of the whole story. There's not a single document out there, nothing public at least, that could shed light on what truly happened. No autopsy report, no detailed medical breakdown. So, the whole world thinks it knows the reason, but that reason is just kind of floating out there, with no solid medical ground beneath it. What's more, none of the sources link his main diagnosis, chronic myeloid leukemia, which he'd been living with for years, to the suspected heart issue that's supposed to have happened on that fateful night. There's the official version, sure, but no real proof behind it. And this medical gray area leaves the biggest question wide open. While silence and uncertainty hang over the slopes of Makalu, a storm is raging in the news. Like an avalanche, the story of his death sweeps through global news outlets. Reports ripple out across every continent, from the Americas to Asia, and every headline tells the same, almost magnetic story. This is the portrait of a hero, a man who beat a cerebellar tumor, an athlete who completed the Explorers Grand Slam, the world's tallest peaks in both poles, only to find out he'd been living with chronic myeloid leukemia the whole time. Climbing media paint him as someone who saw the mountains as more than just a sport. It was a mission, a way to raise awareness for charity and prove that the human spirit is stronger than any diagnosis. But step away from those glossy headlines and dig through the specialized mountaineering forums, and the conversation changes fast. Here, among people who really know the mountains, the questions take a different turn. Not why, but was it worth it? Did he have the right to take such risks, challenging not just the mountain, but a body already weakened by a serious illness? The community is split. Some are in awe of his courage, while others see needless risk. A gamble that put not only his own life, but the lives of would-be rescuers in danger. And the deeper you look, the more confusion you find. In some stories, reporters even get his age wrong. Was he 55, 56? In reality, he was about 37 during this expedition. Some say he was just the 12th American to finish the Grand Slam. Others claim that number is way higher. Even the basics start to blur. Was he really the first victim of the spring climbing season on Makalu? Did he actually make it to Camp 3, or did the tragedy unfold lower down? These details drift from article to article, but none of them are 100% confirmed by anyone who was actually on the mountain. So, the story the whole world reads is really just a patchwork of official reports, heroic tales, and a whole bunch of rumors no one ever bothered to check. But the most important pieces are still missing, the ones left behind on that icy slope. Thanks for sticking with us. If you found this interesting, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There are plenty more amazing stories ahead.